Hello and welcome to News Express on Africa Business Radio, exclusively brought to you by Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. Now, looking at the newspaper right now, top of the front page, we have Nigeria needs support to ride COVID-19 storm, says analyst. And just below that, with highest inflation in 29 months, country must break away from oil reliance. And of course, that story continues on pages 2 of Business AM newspaper. And below that, we have another headline, funding 2021 budget. Pressure on the monetary space despite lags in MDA's revenue remittances. That story also continues on page 2. And we'll move into the summary section now, where we have Africa $170 billion infrastructure need. That one there is talking about Africa's infrastructure financing needs, which would move up to $170 billion yearly from 2025. Follow that one up. It continues on page 2. And into the finance and investment segment of the paper, concerns over an upside. Talking about stocks now. That one's on page 11. And technology and innovation there. We have MTN's data market dominance. Pick that one up on page 31. And now joining us for conversations is Mr. Philip Isakba. He's the publisher, Business AM. Good morning, Mr. Philip.
Good morning for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now let's begin our conversation with your assessment of the 2021 Appropriation Bill passed to the National Assembly by the President. And that one is on page 14 of Business AM. Now, sometime in August, we saw the Ministry of Finance planning to spend about 12.65 trillion naira as budgetary expenditure in 2021. But now there's a much higher figure. Are you surprised about this?
Well, if you say surprised, you will be ignoring everything that's been going on in the global economy. So not particularly surprised, because if you belong to the school of some economists who think Nigeria is even under budgeted, you will see that 13.08 trillion naira budget is still really small for the size of the economy and the capacity of the economy. So there are a growing number of economists who think that Nigeria should be budgeting more. If you were to reduce that into whether you want to look at population size, and you want to divide that up, you will find that there's quite a lot to do. The economists globally, have always talked about when you are in recession, you spend your way out of recession. That Nigeria's income is not that great, but there are different means by which you can really spend your way out of difficult economic situations. Right. So I'm not surprised that it was moved up from 12.65 that was talked about in August. A lot of things have happened since August. And this year has been a difficult year. The COVID-19 situation has created a lot of thinking among planners, in terms of economic planning. So not really surprised, I think you get to a point where you really need to spend good money. I think what we need to look at is what are the specifics of the budget, whether it moved up from 12.65 to 13.08 trillion naira. We should be thinking about what are the specifics, what are the areas of spending. Those are the areas that economists will be looking at, and not the size of the budget as of now.
Now, talking about specifics, the president actually showed some interest in human capital development in the budget. And we saw that when he voted in 545.1 billion naira for the Ministry of Education and 380.21 billion naira for the Ministry of Health. Now, what are your thoughts on these allocations, considering how low Nigeria was plotted in the 2021 World Bank Human Capital Development Index, which was released sometime last month? Again,
you will need to go back to, I think, a few years ago at the start of this administration. Remember, Bill Gates came to Nigeria, and one of the areas he hammered on was our spend on human capital development. And it's not a surprise that we've seen some kind of interest by way of voting some good money to that area. Again and again, it's still not enough in terms of what, if you look at the size of the country, if you look at the population of the country, you're looking at 5 for education, 545.1 billion naira. For health, you're looking at 380.21 billion naira. They're good numbers, but they aren't really enough given what the country requires. Don't forget that COVID has exposed a lot of things, especially inadequacies in the health sector. It has exposed quite a lot in terms of economic management, and I believe that the planners will have thought hard and deep about this and will have decided to increase this a notch or two, but still not enough for the population of the country. If you were to divvy that up, you will find that per capita education spend, per capita health spend is still not anywhere near what we should be spending as a big country and a big player in Africa and a big player in the world.
Right. Now, readers can turn their attention to page 14 of Business AM. The headline, President Buhari presents proposed 2021 appropriation bill to National Assembly for more on the specifics of that data. And now, before I let you go, Mr. Philip, take us through all the headlines you want readers to be particular about this week.
I think readers should be looking at a few things in the paper. They should be looking at commodities and agriculture section where there's a talk about crowdfunding, and particular one that went awry last week or so. There has been a lot of attention in terms of people coming up to set up crowdfunding as a way of financing agriculture. One went pear-shaped the other day, and we have focused deeply on it and looked at the other crowdfunding approaches that have been used. You have to look at also our telecom section, which looked at the positive outlook by GMSAS, that came up with a report that looked at positive outlook for sub-Saharan African mobile telecom. That's quite an interesting survey or research report that we got hold of and we focused on. It talks about 500 million mobile subscription by 2021 in Africa, $48.7 billion telco revenues by 2025, $53 billion in infrastructure spent by telcos by 2025, and then Nigeria, Ethiopia, home to 1/3 internet users by 2025. There's quite a lot in there. There's also the need to look at the concern for an upside in capital market. Last week on Tuesday, we had the market post record, a 10-month record, when you saw 15.1 trillion naira. That's the capital market posting 15.1 trillion naira, and then last week we saw all share index also looking positive, 4.9 basis point rise, And then one interesting story, you see, in the midst of all this, there's one particular company perhaps people need to look at. It's Buhari, the number of deals that's been signing under this COVID. Since COVID came up, while there's a lot of concern with what we hear about is a lot of deals being signed here and there, whether it is pasta, whether it is refinery, whether it's cement. So those are the things that I think that readers should look out for and go for it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Philip. We'll do this again on Friday for more developing stories this week from Business AM. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Philip Isapa is the publisher, Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper.